Alright folks, freshly scrubbed and bathed and laundered. The Aquarius full moon, which happened and occurred almost 12 hours ago at this point in time. I'm doing this, well, not 12 hours ago. It's about 6:10, not 6:10, it's about 6:10 p.m. Pacific time, and the full moon was at 8:58 a.m. Pacific time. So almost 12 hours, about 10 hours ago. 9 hours ago, 11 hours ago, whatever. Some hours ago. And typically I do a full moon video before the full moon. Aquarius is a really interesting sign right now to host the full moon, and in some ways very, very welcome. As I explained in my video yesterday, as planets clear the sign of Cancer, they square three powerhouse planets in Capricorn: Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. And Mercury tomorrow moves into the sign of Leo. The sun is already in Leo, and it's because the sun is in Leo that we have a full moon in Aquarius, opposite signs to each other. So the lead up to this full moon was certainly full of tension and opposition, especially from a thinking, speaking, planning, travel, etc. perspective. That etc. is not very clear, but Mercury, being a planet of transactions and communication and technology, was certainly tested. That's what oppositions tend to do. They tend to test, they tend to oppose, they tend to place an obstacle, they tend to place a bit of a test with regard to, are you absolutely sure that you want to move this fast and you're going in this direction? And as I explained in my video yesterday, the sign of Cancer, where it is that we are either trying to avail of opportunities or overcome challenges, all of which are a little bit outside our comfort zone or significantly out of our comfort zone, but are absolutely essential for us to feel like we are on the right path and moving forward on the right path, and essential for us to develop certain skills around either availing of these opportunities or around tackling these challenges, building muscles that are weak inherently. The sign of Cancer, the house that it occupies, if you know your chart, what that house stands for, are really important at present. We're still in a lunar cycle. The last new moon on July the 20th was in the sign of Cancer, and the eclipse prior to that on June the 21st was in the sign of Cancer. So we are being called upon one final time to tackle challenges or avail of opportunities and lean into and build skills and strengths and the proverbial muscle, pick up the sword and slay the dragon, continue down the path of our hero's journey wherever the sign of Cancer falls in our chart. And it's been a set of challenges that has been placed in front of us for our growth and development since July 2018. So the lead up to this full moon had its set of challenges, reality checks, alarm, but the full moon itself in Aquarius may have brought a certain amount of clarity. We're down to normal full moons and new moons now. After 3 eclipses, 2 in June, 1 in July, 1 in June, 2 in July. No, 2 in June, 1 in July. 2 in June, 1 in July. June the 5th, July the 21st. June the 5th, June the 21st, July the 4th. Sorry about that. It's nice to finally, and then the July 20th new moon was in Cancer, which was where the last eclipse was, so it still continues the theme of the eclipse. It's nice to some extent to be down to normal crests and peaks and initiations, normal full moons, normal new moons. But full moons and new moons still continue the conversation that is started by eclipses. They have a relationship with the eclipses that occur, and certainly with the July 21st eclipse, good Lord, I will get these dates right in my mind. With the June 21st eclipse, we can't really ignore August 21st, the week before, week after that either, because I find that after solar eclipse, the 2 months after that eclipse, the week before, week after that date, have a resonance and are important, and we're headed towards that. As I explained yesterday, the August 18th, Leo new moon, August 17th, when the Sun and Mercury are conjunct in Leo, forms a certain deadline for us to complete communications and yang actions and actions we feel we need to take, either to avail of opportunities or protect ourselves or deal with the challenges where Cancer sits in our sign by August the 17th. And that date falls very much in line with this kind of 2-month anniversary, not anniversary, 2 months after the solar eclipse in Cancer on June the 21st. Okay, so the lead up to the full moon had its set of typically full moon behaviors, revelations, things becoming clearer, things becoming more visible, people being moved into the spotlight somehow, but also emotional stress in terms of the sheer amount of work that people's, the intensity picks up as you get towards the full moon. The full moon itself is in the sign of Aquarius, which is an extraordinarily discriminating and level-headed sign. The kind of sign, if you have strong Aquarius placements in your chart, butter doesn't melt in your mouth. It's a sign that's ruled by Saturn and Uranus, but certainly by Saturn, classically. And so it is very concerned with 3D reality. And with Aquarius, it's very concerned with social and humanitarian ideals and goals, principles of equality, principles of what is right and what is fair and what needs to happen in order to create progress. But it does so not on the basis of faith as much as it does so on the basis of scientific and technological progress and measurable progress. And that is why Aquarius is such a tough cookie of a sign, because it isn't a very warm and fuzzy sign. If you are still holding on to some sort of Age of Aquarius, hair hippie view of the sign of Aquarius, I urge you to relegate that to the sign of Pisces. Compassion in the sign of Aquarius, it's much more sort of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation philanthropy than it is sort of Piscean Mother Teresa, Elizabeth Taylor warmth and love and compassion of, it has a different bend. It's very measurable. It's much more scientific. It's much more technical. It's progress oriented. It's extraordinarily discriminating, and it's a little bit like when you get into an argument with someone who is very scientific or very Aquarian, they don't let you off the hook, and it's all comes down to, if I'm an astrologer, and I am, and I'm having a discussion with someone who has a strong Aquarius placement in that chart, it'll, prove it. I don't believe you. How do you know? It's just like, all right, enough already. That energy in some ways is very helpful and very necessary right now. And you may have found that as you actually headed to the full moon itself, not the 2 or 3 days before the full moon, but as you headed to the full moon itself, and even the 12 to 24 hours after the full moon, you may experience a certain kind of equilibrium, but especially a kind of clarity that may be accompanied by this full moon is square Uranus. And Uranus is a planet, first and foremost, Uranus is a co-ruler of Aquarius, so that in itself is interesting. And Uranus is a planet that leads to epiphanies and clarity and quantum leaps in understanding, and also technical technology can play a big part in providing some of this epiphany somehow, can be an agent in if you found yourself over the last 24 hours, over the next 24 hours, kind of dealing with technology as a source of information. Sorry, I don't know why I keep doing these videos right here. I'm gonna actually move us. So technology might end up playing a big role in, here we go, our usual spot. I thought I would stick to the avocado tree, but I don't know, I'll go under the calamansi tree. So thanks for bearing with that. So technology, epiphanies, clarity, a kind of, in the middle of the chaos and the commotion, and in the middle of whatever it was that was stressing you out, you may find that you have a moment of very grounded clarity that is almost like an intuitive hit or a flash. It would be very Uranian to give you, sometimes with Uranus, a lot of people are predicting sudden events or lightning flashes, and I think Uranus has that, but more than that, I think Uranus is much more preoccupied with liberation. So if it is a situation from which you're looking for liberation, if it is a situation where you have over the past 24 hours and over the next 24 hours you experience a certain amount of, you know what, I can't overlook this, I shouldn't overlook this, I'm having a moment of my inner knowing of what is going on with a particular situation. Trust that, and it will probably feel very, strangely enough, even though it's intuitive, it'll feel kind of rational and calming, kind of Aquarian, balanced. Our tendency, of course, with these kinds of things is to overlook them and write over them. I would urge you just to take it into consideration. You don't have to act on it. You can act on whatever it is that you'd like to act on and however you'd like to act. But, you know, just if you found that the 72 hours, then 48 hours, then up to 24 hours leading up to this full moon were becoming fraught. But then as you headed towards the full moon about 12 hours ago, and even for the 12 hours since then, I would say 24 hours before and 24 hours after the full moon, if there's a feeling of eureka, you know, or I think I know what I need to do, a feeling of stillness, a kind of rational clarity about something, then this full moon is doing its job at a helpful time, you know, at a time where we're still being very much challenged to deal with past issues and put them behind us so that we can welcome the new. And I certainly talked ad nauseum about that in my past few videos, including the one I did yesterday. So that is where I would leave this full moon. The full moon is ruled by Saturn, which is in its own sign of Capricorn, and Uranus. So clarity and a kind of fierce realism, practical realism that has to do with being, you know, with Saturn, it's about 3D reality. We're not talking faith, we're not talking dreams, we're not talking imagination, we're talking building on things that are real. We're talking about fulfilling your potential. We're talking about things you can feel and see. We're talking about money you can count. We're talking about achievements that go on a resume. We're talking about awards that go on a mantle. We're talking about progress. We're talking about what it means to be successful on planet Earth within certain frameworks. So whatever this epiphany and clarity is, it could be very real in terms of self-protection and self-defense. It could be very real with regard to knowing what to do next or what is going on with a certain situation. It could be very real with regard to how to deal with and tackle, and some clarity about a challenge that may, in the sign of Cancer, that may be murky, something related to the sign of Capricorn where things have to be released. Whatever, you know, it'll have that kind of very kind of Aquarian epiphanic clarity. Uranus is in Taurus. We've touched on the importance of Uranus. You know, whatever this clarity is, it also has the potential for being really quite healing, because the sun just before the full moon and the moon just before the full moon aspected Chiron, sort of a healing body, wounding and healing, sort of the primary wound in a chart. But there's the potential for, again, this epiphany and clarity, however much it may be giving you some sort of a final verdict on, or some sort of a clarity on a situation. This is a general reading. That's why I'm kind of struggling for words to make sure that I can give them to you in such a way that they can apply to, or at least you can relate, as many people can relate to this as possible. And if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. I apologize. Discard it by all means. Epiphany, clarity, and also an opportunity for healing something. Now, an opportunity for healing can sometimes mean building bridges, can sometimes mean being in communication, but can sometimes mean letting go of a situation, or closing a door, or burning a bridge, but it doesn't have to be violent. With Aquarius, it can be very level-headed. It can be very peaceful. It can be very clear. It can be very, don't mess with me, but it can be very direct. It can be very straightforward. It can be very dispassionate, very rational, very dispassionate. And so whether it is that you're building a bridge or whether it is that you're closing a door as a result of this clarity, right now just kind of sit in the clarity and really know what you feel the next step needs to be. And in a very Aquarius sense, all you have to do is take care of the next step, and then the next step, and the next step. And you could be closing a door on a relationship, you could be closing a door on an employer or an employment situation, you could be closing the door. You could be closing the door on a situation. So it doesn't have to mean that the relationship or the employer goes out the window, but a certain situation or an aspect that you're kind of done with and you've gotten some clarity on over the last now 36 hours, and maybe over the next 12 hours, maybe over the next 24 hours, whatever that time period of that clarity is. After that, in a very Aquarian, very rational, very scientific, very dispassionate, very clear way, all you need to do is plod along. It's a little bit like a science experiment, which the sign of Aquarius would love. And measurable progress. And progress, the word with Saturn ruled signs, but especially with Aquarius, is a kind of progress towards peace and harmony and the collective good. As far as ownership is concerned, Saturn and Uranus, as far as the dispositors of the chart are concerned, Uranus is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. Venus is in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. Mercury, at the time of the full moon, was in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, and the moon is full. So the dispositors of the chart, ultimately, Saturn is certainly a primary dispositor, but there's some sort of an interesting conversation because the moon is in Aquarius. It brings us back to Uranus, and then Venus, relationships, money, opportunities, but relationships and money. Mercury, communication. The sign of Gemini and the sign of Cancer become a little bit important in Taurus through this process and where those are in your chart. Subtly, there's Saturn in Capricorn, your success, your achievement, the fulfillment of your potential, your conscious awareness of action and reaction, your conscious awareness of karma, and therefore taking karmically responsible actions. No question that it is both a ruler of this full moon and a dispositor of this chart. And then you've got this conversation between Uranus, clarity, Venus, relationships, finances, opportunities, Mercury, communications, and then the moon itself. Our emotional reaction or tally to whatever's going on from a communication and a relationship perspective. And there's a communication with the retrogrades that we've just come out of. Venus retrograde in Gemini, Mercury retrograde in Cancer, for Venus from the middle of May till the end of June, for Mercury end of June to the middle of July. It's a topical full moon. It's a full moon that's helping us along and helping us forward. So if those planetary dispositions, the idea that stay to the strict and narrow, protect yourself, deal with the fulfillment of your potential with Saturn and Capricorn and your ambition, avail of the clarity and the peace and the equilibrium that you've gotten after what have probably been a stressful and an escalating few days, and ponder on whatever clarity you're getting in terms of relationships through communication and your emotional reactions to whatever's being revealed. If that is roughly how you're feeling right now with this full moon, I would say you're in the right place. And we get to move onwards. One more thing I will say is that the days following a full moon and the time following a full moon are in some ways the best time to get things done and be productive. So enjoy the next 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 days, because the balance of energies with a full moon that's growing slowly smaller is a great time to actually start to get done with stuff and get rid of you have a certain amount of productive fire so that you can get done with stuff and finish it up. Okay, if you like this video, feel free to share it, tell your friends about it, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, click on the bell icon after you subscribe to be notified whenever I do videos. My contact information is in the subject area. Once I'm done processing this video, you can reach out to me to inquire about rates if you like, or you can reach out to me to inquire about rates for reading, or if you want me to make an easy to read version of your chart that'll tell you which sign is in which house and what those houses stand for. You will need to know your birth time for that, but do not share it with me until you've gotten the rates and you're comfortable with moving forward. I don't want your personal information for that. And feel free to like this video if you did, or comment on it, because the likes and comments give it greater circulation. I will leave it at that. The current plan is to be back tomorrow to talk about Mercury entering Leo, but those of you who are part of this channel know that the videos get done when they get done. I appreciate so much you're sticking with me and you're enjoying the content. But the current plan is to be back on tomorrow to the Mercury and Leo video. So I should be in touch in the next 24 to 48 hours. All right, thanks. Bye.